straight in my head that Dean had to draft me a flowchart to study the Bolano family tree. I think I'm finally getting a hang of just who is who. And here's the proof. I would also like to give special thanks to John and Jerry Bolano, the parents of the bride, for hosting this celebration and offering their daughter's hand in marriage to my son. I don't think there could be a father of a groom prouder to call your daughter his daughter-in-law. You two cooked up a remarkable woman. Melissa is beautiful, smart, loving, gracious, and strong-willed, generous, and kind. We are all so very lucky, and again, I'm so proud to have her as my daughter-in-law. I remember she was one of the first non-family members who arrived at the ER after my stroke. How special is that? And early on brought her very close to my heart. My first toast will be to John and Jerry for bringing Melissa into our lives. Thank you so much.
That's one.
Now let me tell you about my boy. Of my three remarkable children, Dean. Of my three remarkable children, Dean was the first grandson in an initial field of 7 granddaughters to my parents. It seemed like Dean's mother and I were under a great deal of pressure, but managed to break the female trend my brothers and I were stuck in. I'm probably going to get an earful from my nieces and my daughter before the night is over, so maybe I should just move on. Dean, like Melissa, is a very special child. I am blessed to have him and to call him my son. He too is thoughtful, compassionate, has a great sense of humor, kind, generous, smart, and loving, and adventurous. I need those glasses. He gets his thoughtfulness and kindness from his grandmother, my mother, and his mechanical instinct and business aptitude from his grandfather. My dad. If they were here today, they would be so proud of him, would be so excited to have Melissa join our family. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
I knew from an early age that Dean was going to be a very special child. I remember when he was around 7 or 8, he was invited to an overnight at a school friend's home. I dropped him off, and when I picked him up the next morning, just before we left, the father of the household pulled me aside and wanted to tell me how proud he was of Dean and how lucky I was. Apparently, when I dropped him off the night before, Dean came into the house and immediately ran up the foyer spiral staircase to the second floor to join his friends. The father told me that Dean had stopped in his tracks when he noticed that one of his friends was just coming in and was crying and very hesitant to coming to the overnight and was struggling to leave his mother's side. After I left, the father said Dean came running down the steps and put his arm around his upset friend to comfort him and to tell him everything was going to be okay while he guided him up the staircase to join their other friends. These are the kind of stories that really warm the heart of a parent. Sorry, Dean, but things didn't start out all that way with you. You began your life as a screamer. It took a while for your mother and me to figure out that you were lactose intolerant. So after we brought you home for a long time, in order for us to get any sleep, we would start you in the cradle in our room, but when you got revved up, one of us would get up to take you downstairs and try to rock you to sleep. I remember one night where I'm pretty sure you developed your YOLO adventurous spirit. For those who don't know what YOLO is, it's an acronym Dean often uses as a way of looking at life as you only live once. In my view, it's just an excuse for doing really stupid things. That night, it was my turn to grab the screamer and take him downstairs to try to quiet him down. So I grabbed him onto my chest and did not turn on any lights, so the light was very dim going down the steps that night. I made it down the first flight of maybe 10 steps and turned to attempt the second flight of steps when all of a sudden my feet and legs slipped out from under me and I found myself flat on my back at the bottom of
Stairs.
the bottom of the steps, and Dean had disappeared from my arms. With what little light there was, I looked up and I noticed he was spinning like a helicopter about 6 feet above me in the air. And a few seconds later, bam, he landed right back on my chest and was quiet as a mouse. YOLO, baby. You also at times could be a pain in the ass, but with a great sense of humor. When you were younger, you had a terrible knack of not being able to ever find your shoes, especially in the morning before school, and you would always say, "Hey Dad, where are my shoes?" So one morning, Dad had enough. Dean came out of his room and was standing in the foyer when again he said, "Hey Dad, where are my shoes?" I looked over in disgust and noticed his shoes were right at his feet, right next to where he was standing. So I stormed over to him and grabbed him by the back of his belt and flipped him upside down and shoved his nose and face right down in his stinky old shoes for a few seconds. He hesitated for a second or two, and then his head wrenched back around to look up at me, and with a big Cheshire cat grin on his face, he said, "Hey Dad, where are my shoes?" I about fell over and died laughing. I don't recall him ever misplacing his shoes after that. And now finally, a toast to the bride and groom, Melissa and Dean. Congratulations, we wish you much joy and happiness in your life together. And to Melissa, I hope you don't spend much of your time having to look for Dean's shoes. Call me if you do. I have a remedy.